Hello there. It's going to be a fairly short one today, or at least I'm intending it to be. Um, as you all know, we're coming up to Halloween, which is on the 31st of this month. Now, a lot of people would not know what Halloween is really about or what it's based on, so I'm going to try to explain that in a very short video. Okay, so Halloween it basically means All Hallows Eve. So it's the night before All Hallows Day, which is one of the most holy days in the Catholic calendar, and that's sort of carried on sort of into the Protestant calendar as well. But its origins is in the Catholic Church. So, following on from All Hallows Day, the following day, I think it's the 2nd of November, is All Souls Day. So you have these two holy days put together, and it's no accident where they fall, because at this time of year, dates can vary, anything between around the 20th of October through to the 7th of November. You have a much older pagan festival called Samhain, which originates in Ireland, and the month of November in Ireland is, in the Irish language or Gaeilge, it's called Samhain, and the Irish name for Halloween is Iha Hauna. So this originally, as I said, was a pagan festival associated with death and the dead. And sort of really about venerating the ancestors. That was its primary purpose. And the belief was that at this time of year, the veil between the other world and the sort of world that we live in, and our consciousness is in most of the time, that veil between the two would be very thin, and it would be much easier to contact your deceased family members, etc. And then you also have spirits roaming the land, and Elshi, or the fairies, also being more present or visible than normal. So there's a whole bunch of traditions that have got transferred from what was an ancient pagan festival into Halloween. And Halloween was put there deliberately by the church to try to eradicate this pagan festival. Although what actually happened was a lot of these traditions ended up being sort of semi-Christianized, and still practiced by most people, even though the church prohibited them, and then actually tried to ban sort of all the Halloween festivities at one point in Ireland and other places. And of course this failed, so they had to really sort of just try and sort of bring it into the celebrations of All Hallows Day and All Souls Day. So you got all these hijinks going on the night before All Hallows Day, and it's sort of just reluctantly sort of accepted. But the church at the same time did quite a process of scaring people and demonizing a lot of these traditions, and certainly sort of demonizing the sort of spirits of the land and the Shi and ancestors, and making people fearful of ghosts, fearful of the dead ancestors, and sort of obviously terrified about the Satan or the devil being abroad at this time. So a lot of the scary stuff associated with Halloween has come from the church's attempt to demonize a much older cultural tradition than what the Catholic Church has practiced in its own rituals and rites. So you've got this kind of weird combination of leftovers from the pagan times combined with sort of early Christian and sort of later Christian ideas. And then you've also got an overlay of returning traditions from the Americas and other places, particularly the Americas, So that's where things like pumpkins come from, and sort of the zombie, that's obviously from the Caribbean, from Haiti in particular, and various other sort of ghostly creatures that sort of feature in modern Halloween. Some of them have come from Ireland and Britain and Europe, and some of them have come from further afield in the world. So now there's a few odd things as well, like bleeding from St. Martin, which happens on St. Martin's Day, which is I think that's the 11th of November. I'm not entirely sure. That's a strange ritual involving killing a chicken and scattering its blood on the four walls of the house, which has got very little to do with St. Martin, but it's a tradition that would have been to do with this festival of the dead and protecting the home. And at this time you would have done a lot of slaughtering of your beasts, or cattle or pigs, etc., and chickens, going into the winter, because part of the tradition is about sort of not just asking your ancestors for their sort of support, but also, I suppose, the gods, or in the case of later times, God or the Virgin Mary or Jesus, to sort of help you through this difficult time, through to the spring. Because of course winter is a peak time for deaths, particularly for the young and the elderly. But if you go back in time before the modern age, that would have been much higher again. So people were a little bit fearful of winter. And if you hadn't prepared for winter, like if you hadn't laid in food and sort of wood and whatever, and prepared for, what could be very harsh conditions, then you might not survive. So really that's the core of what Halloween is about. It's not about plastic trinkets and, trick or treat, or running around dressed up in costumes, although there are precedents for that in the past, which can be sort of traced back to ancient times. It's sort of been sort of distorted and reinterpreted, and people have often lost the context of why these things are done. But it was originally a festival for the dead, which always did involve, and does today, a bonfire. In the UK, that's been moved to the 5th of November because of the gunpowder plot, but in Ireland and other places it's still celebrated on whatever the traditional Halloween date is, which is not always the same. As I said, it could be like some people will be celebrating with the new moon on the 21st of October. Other people will be celebrating on the 31st. Other people again will be celebrating on the midpoint of the sidereal calendar between the equinox and the winter solstice, which would be around the 6th or 7th of November. So that's basically it in a nutshell. And you can find out a lot more about that if you want to look online. And you may also be interested in this book that I wrote about the subject of Halloween and Samhain. There it is. So I think, if you're interested, you can get that from my website, or you can get it off the usual outlets. So that's just in a nutshell really what Halloween is about. And it was never intended to be a commercial festival, but that's pretty much what it's become today. So I would hope lots of people would be interested in what it's really about, and not in just buying loads of plastic junk from China. So, and I mean, it's great. There's a fun side to Halloween, and it should be fun, but there's also a serious side to it, and I think people forget that. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say. I could say a lot more, but I wanted to keep this short, so there you go. I managed to scrape in under 10 minutes. So if you liked it, give a like, please. Leave a comment if you want, and feel free to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Thank you for watching and listening, and bye for now.